I will show you how you can do a social login button on your website. What we're going to do is we're going to use the LinkedIn profile APIs. And with those APIs, you can build your own social login functionality. Now let me explain what is social login and why is it great. So somewhere on your webpage you have a possibility to capture your visitors. The way this is done is usually via a sign up form. So people can sign up for your newsletter, for example. There's a first name, last name, email address, and people have to fill in this form and submit it, and they are on your mailing list. Now, most people don't like to do that. They don't like to fill in forms. Is there a better way? And yes, there is a way to do that, and that's social login. You can just put one little button on your website, and this button says sign in with LinkedIn. It will look like this, much less intimidating. To sign up to my newsletter, just click the button below. So instead of filling in a form, you just need to click a button. That's a lot less intimidating. You will get a higher conversion rate and a lot more people will sign up for your offer. What I will show you in this video is how you can get this functionality or how you can build this functionality for your own web page and what you need to do, what's the functionality that needs to go behind this sign in with LinkedIn functionality. Now, if we go back to our HTML view of this, you see in this paragraph, there's basically an image and around it there is a link. That's all. There's no fancy JavaScript. There's basically nothing on this web page. It's a very simple web page. Whenever you click on this link, something needs to happen on LinkedIn. Now, in order to create this URL, you need to go and get the worksheet for LinkedIn. I have, together with another video on LinkedIn APIs, I have created and published a worksheet that helps you to work with LinkedIn API and to work with LinkedIn OAuth. And this comes in handy when you want to realize this project here. Now, in order to use social login with LinkedIn, you need to use OAuth. OAuth is the security protocol, and how OAuth for LinkedIn works, I show you in another video here. So please watch this video first. You're going to save yourself a lot of frustration by watching this video, understanding what's going on, getting the worksheet, and then returning to this video here, because what we're going to talk about today is some kind of advanced functionality. You need to have a good understanding of OAuth, you need to have a good understanding of APIs in general, and you need to have a good understanding of how OAuth works on LinkedIn. I will put the link up in the top, and I encourage you to go there and get the worksheet for LinkedIn. Now, I have already downloaded the worksheet for LinkedIn right here. And as you see, it's just a basic text file, but it contains all the important information that you need in order to call an API. And the most important thing that you need to do here is you need to understand that what the link on your homepage will be is basically a call in the browser to the authorization endpoint at LinkedIn. So you need to fill in basically all the parameters into this authorization endpoint. Right here, it's required that you put in a scope parameter, you put in a client ID, and you put in a redirect URI. Now, if you have watched the other video, you already know how and where you have to sign up to get your client ID, to define your redirect URI, and to understand the scopes. Before you proceed here, please watch that other video. I'm not going to repeat all the details. Now, in addition, you need to have a little bit more complicated scope than we have here. So it's not only the light profile scope, but you will also need to have another scope, which is called our email address. Now you need to remember that scope parameters are concatenated by a blank, and if you URL encode them, this is going to be a %20. So your scope parameter will be our light profile %20, our email address. So we take this information from here and copy it, and then you will set the client ID and the redirect URI in URL encoded form as we've seen before. Then you take this URL and you push it into your super simple HTML page, which is basically just a link that the user can click. Now, what I need to do here is set my client ID and set my redirect URI. Now, to get these parameters, I go on the LinkedIn developer webpage, LinkedIn developers, and the app that I've already created in the previous episode is this My App 2. And this My App 2, it's important to select two products, the product share on LinkedIn and sign in with LinkedIn. Okay, and you can just, without any hassle, basically request this and it will be automatically granted to you. Go to My Apps, My App 2, I go to Auth, and here on Auth, I need to get my client ID, right? So this is the client ID. I put in my client ID here. Client secret, I don't need it right now. And I will go and do my Auth 2 settings by adding a redirect URL. So right now you can just add any. And now I do the URL encoding, which is kind of straightforward. Encode it. And I get this URL encoded. And there you go. And now I should already be able to do the sign in with LinkedIn. Let's test it. Sign in with LinkedIn. I'm asked to log in, but it says welcome back. So usually all the credentials or your login information is already pre-filled. You just need to say sign in. It says My App 2 would like to use your name and photo, use your primary email address associated with your LinkedIn account. You can stop this sync in your LinkedIn settings. My App 2 terms apply. Learn more. So this is basically the consent screen of LinkedIn, and they have taken into account both of our scopes. So this is the R light profile scope. This is the first one where you can get the name and the photo, and the R email address scope triggers this part here that your primary email address associated with the LinkedIn account is shared. And now you can say allow. Now, when I click allow, the redirect endpoint is triggered and the authorization code is created. Yes, and it worked because now I go to the redirect URI, which I have specified. You remember it was URL encoded, and I get the parameter code with this code in here, the state that I've supplied, but the only thing I basically need from here is the code. Now, of course, this is not sufficient, right? This is not sufficient for our social login purposes because now we have an authorization code of OAuth. We don't really have any detailed information about the user. All the login information, all the credentials, all the email address that you've seen on the screen was all on the side of LinkedIn. It was not on our side. But we want to have this information. So now we're going to exchange this authorization code into an access token in the first step. And the second step, we'll use this access token to call a couple of LinkedIn APIs. Now let's do that. save the authorization code in here. We will do a curl call with all the information that was provided before. All right, so I'll put in the authorization code. I will take our redirect URI, that's URL encoded from before. I will take the client ID that we've already picked up on the web page, on the developer web page, put that in. And now client secrets there, I need to go back basically to the dev portal and okay, and I paste my curl in here, hit return, and boom, I get the access token. The access token is exactly this part here. And I'll put it in here. And now basically the new part starts. So far we have gone already in the last video. I just wanted to shortly recap. So the first part that we have today is all about using an already existing access token and getting that information about the user, getting the name, getting the email address of the user from an existing OAuth access token. So here's how we're going to do that. And now we take the access token and start our node.js program. All right, so I've already started a little program here. I'll tell you soon what's in there already. So what's in this program or in this little stub here is it's a Node.js JavaScript. I'm going to use the request library in order to do HTTP calls. Then I have my access token, which I've just gotten via curl. I'll hard code this for now. I have a call API function in here. I will make the source code available for you so you can follow along, concentrate on what I'm doing here. And you will get this source code on the link that pops up here. Okay, and then I can also do a little main method here. And this main method basically does a call API. It gives in the access token. And now we'll call the main method. All right, so this is another, this is just a function call of main, and now we need to define done, and done is just another function that basically has a parameter, and we're gonna print this parameter. That's all. All right, so call API with the access token and done function, and now it's all about this method here. So this method does a request get. It calls an API. It already has a couple of header parameters set. The request method allows us to set HTTP headers. We need to have the authorization header with the bearer access token in there. And then we do a little bit of error handling. So what we need to do in order to call an API is we need to replace API URL basically with the URL that we want to call. For example, we want to call this HTTP API LinkedIn v2me method that we know already. And this method returns the name, first name, last name. So I think that this might already work. So I will now need to npm install the request. library. We're good, that is done. And now we can run our little main method. All right, we need to have error and response. So if error, else, then we print the error. Otherwise, we print the result. Okay, so now we get a result, and the result is this JSON construct. And as we can see, there is a parameter called localized name and a localized last name and localized first name in there, which looks interesting. So basically, what we want to do here is we want to capture the result. So basically do this function error result and result dot localized last name was localized last name console.log localized last name and localized first name. We're good. Can we run this? Yes. So now we get the name of the logged in user. Now, where does this come from? Where does this code know that it's actually me who is logged in? Well, all this information is part of the access token, right? So when I come with this access token, this contains information about who is actually logged in. It's this guy called Matthias Biel. So it's all contained in this access token, and the LinkedIn Me API basically resolves this access token, goes with it to a database, and looks me up. It looks the localized first name, localized last name up. Now, in order to realize social login functionality, this is not sufficient. What we need is the email address. So I will need to call another API in order to get the email address. All right, the email address, we will need to do another API call. And if we do 2 API calls, then we need to be a bit more specific. Call me API, call email API, and then we have the me API in the main. That's what we've called so far. Once we have the result of the me API, we want to call the email API. Now, how do I call the email API? Now, the email API has, of course, a different address. And we're going to look up the address of the email API on the dev portal. On the dev portal, we have documentation, consumer documentation, consumer solutions. We have sign in with LinkedIn. That's exactly what we're doing. And we have the me API. We've already called that. And then we want to retrieve the member email address, right? So here's the URL. It's a little bit more complicated URL because it contains a couple of query parameters. And then the result is not so straightforward. It's a bit complex construct, right, that we were getting here. But let's go step by step. Now we call this API in the email address. We call this new URL for email. We don't need to have this get here. And what we want to do is basically do the debugging and just print whatever is contained in here. Okay. We want to print the response body and see what we get. Okay, the first part is from the call me API, and we have the Matthias Biel. And the second part is from the email API. And here we get this a little bit more complicated construct. I can just copy that out from the console over here. So we now need to do a little bit of parsing in order to get the correct information out, right? So just temporarily, I will put this in here. I need to have the elements out of here, and then there is an array, and out of this array, I basically need to have the first element, the email address out of it. Now what I need to do is, of course, I need to take out our debug. So now we basically have all the information that we need from LinkedIn already in our application. All right. But now what is missing is actually the integration between our homepage, which goes to this redirect URL, and this piece of code that we have written that triggers those two APIs. And that piece of code I will provide to you in the next episode. So stay tuned for next week. We will continue our social login project. Yeah, so this is actually a 3-part series on how to realize social login with LinkedIn. So the first part that we have today is all about using an already existing access token and getting that information about the user. Now, the second part is all about integration of the social login into your existing homepage. That includes how do you get an access token and how do you program actually the code to get the LinkedIn access token, and how do you integrate that with the first part where we've called the APIs to get the name and the email address. And then the third part of the series will be all about putting that data into your mailing list provider, and therefore you need to use another set of APIs. If this video was any helpful for you, then you will also like the other videos in this channel. So subscribe to this channel. New episodes are airing every Wednesday, 6 p.m. European time, 9 a.m. Pacific time.